G'day guys, Tours20 here and welcome back to Springwood. Today's episode I'm going to continue work on Santa Clara. This is a suburb I've been working on for the last few episodes, pretty much Santa Monica and Venice Beach put into one suburb. And kind of taking a lot of references from there, but also going on my own tangents. But we'll be actually working on a highway in this episode that is very much like the one that goes from Santa Monica to Malibu and all the way up the coastline to San Francisco. I'm just going to map out that place and just really figure out how this suburb's going to expand over time. But before we get into the nitty gritty of today's episode, there is an Easter egg challenge that is happening right now. It is a new segment on my Springwood series, and let me just give you the lowdown of how to play and how to be a part of it if you are not aware already. So at Springwood, there is a Springwood Wiki page, a fan-made page that is a comprehensive city guide to Springwood. I've left a link in the description below. Go and check it out. It's very fascinating. People are just putting in huge amounts of creativity and thought into it. It's amazing. So each week I'm going to pluck just one story from the wiki and I'm going to tweet about it a couple of days before each Springwood video. And I'm going to include some sort of reference within the cinematics or within the build in that video. Your job is to find what that reference is and then comment what it is and where it is in the video. The first person who finds that Easter egg is the winner. Each week there'll only be one winner, and those winners will receive a link to an exclusive Springwood cinematic video that I will leave private and will probably never show anybody else. It is just purely for the Easter egg hunt. And just as an added incentive, here's just a little sneak peek of that video. So for this video's challenge, there is some sort of reference to this wiki page in this video. So try and find it, and if you do find it, leave a comment below saying what it is and where it is in the video, and if you are the first person to do that, then I'll send you that link. Good luck. I hope all this makes sense, and I hope you get right into it because I think it's pretty exciting and pretty fun, and I'm super pumped to be doing things like this within this channel. It has always been a dream, so this is definitely a step in the right direction. And because this is a brand new segment, please let me know if you have any suggestions on how to maybe fine tune it. If you've got a name for this segment, at the moment I'm just calling it an Easter hunt, but there's got to be a better name for it. If you've got some sort of cool pun, then definitely let me know. I kind of wanted to call it WikiLinks, bit of a reference to WikiLeaks, but I don't know if that's lame. Please let me know. I'm pretty keen to get right into this, and let me know if you have any cool suggestions for clues or for references, and if you want to get involved in the wiki, just jump on in. It's really easy to navigate, and there is a really great Discord chat group going on at the moment. They are super friendly and super creative, and they are always bouncing off ideas from each other, and I really love to see more people jumping on there and just adding in little details, even if it's naming a suburb or a sim or a backstory to a sim that could be referenced one day in a Springwood episode. So please get involved. The community being built around just this one series is pretty great, and it's very exciting. It's exactly what I wanted to do. But the build, for those people who've tuned in for the build, let's get into that. So like I said before, we are continuing work on Santa Clara, and this is very much a throw to Santa Monica and Venice Beach. I am trying to incorporate as much of that feel as possible. There are so many cool elements with these areas, and I'm trying to get a lot of the icons in, a lot of the general feel of this area, but also it's not a very similar space that I'm working in. It's very different. So a lot of the layout is going to be really different to Santa Monica, and I kind of want it that way. And you'll probably see a little bit later on down the track how different it ends up looking. And I think that's great. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. So you can see that I've been working on this highway, and this highway will pretty much be the only exits to the coastline, the greater coastline, I guess. So this highway is pretty much a reference to that highway that runs up from Santa Monica all the way up the coastline through Malibu to San Francisco. I don't even know the name of this road, but I really love it. I think it's a really cool and interesting area, and I feel like I know it so well only from Grand Theft Auto. This is the only reference I have to this area. I've been to LA a couple of times, but I've never been on this road, and I think it's such an iconic road that I did really need to include it in Springwood. And I've got some really, really great ideas for what I'm going to put along this road. I guess throws to Malibu and all those really big grand mansions that sit on the waterfront. That waterfront that is just being washed away by constant erosion from that sea. And I really want to get into that. Won't be doing that for quite a while, probably not until the next 4 episodes, I'd imagine. So if you've got any ideas, please let me know now, because when I do get to that build, I will be looking at those comments. And if you do live around that area, please let me know if you've got any suggestions of things that an Australian is probably going to totally overlook. Please let me know, i.e. left-hand driving. And you've also seen me do quite a bit of terraforming a little bit earlier. That was placing out a mountain, actually a bit of a mountain range that I wanted to kind of work on. There is a really cool mountain range around this highway in LA, and I wanted to get a little bit of a gist of that, a bit of a feel for that. But I mean, these mountains are not as big as the ones in LA, and there are actual mountains that are very close to that size within Springwood. However, they are kind of not in this area. So I just wanted to kind of make these mountains just a little bit similar to that, but also quite different. If you are jumping onto the wiki and writing a bit of a story behind it, I would love a bit of information about that mountain. We will be getting into a bit more of that later on down the track in future episodes, but for now, that is just sort of an idea for later on. So don't go into too much detail about that road or that mountain range, I guess, but keep it in mind that eventually we're going to be working on areas like that. But what I'm working on in this episode was pretty much figuring out where this highway is going to lie within Santa Clara, and thinking about the greater region as well. And also, I wanted to work on this interchange that is going to pretty much serve commuters coming from the downtown to Santa Clara, and also people who are leaving the city entirely. This interchange kind of turned out pretty good. It didn't want it to be too fancy, but to be honest, I ended up putting in a lot more work than I would usually do. I usually totally avoid doing interchanges and detail work on roads. However, I got right into this, and I was just going kind of crazy and just really detailed it. And but I'm really, really happy with how it turned out, and it functions really nicely. I didn't include how I used traffic precedents to make it function really nicely, because it just took a really long time, to be honest, and I thought it was really boring to watch. So I ended up just skipping right past that, and instead you can just see me detail it, and in the cinematics at the very end you can see how smoothly it actually operates, and there is no traffic banking up, and even if there is, that is, I guess, kind of realistic to what LA is kind of like. You can also see me playing with some of the billboards, and you're probably wondering why I'm not using my special Springwood billboards just yet. They are still in the works, and they are so close to being part of the Springwood series. I can almost smell it, and I'm very excited to be using them. So I was just kind of playing with some billboards, some vanilla, some other ones that have been released recently on the workshop that also fits the 80s style, which is very much appreciated. And I've just been kind of playing with them because billboards sort of lie all over cities, and I really love placing them down. It's just one of those things that you add, and then you realize how much detail they actually add to your city. And I always forget about placing them down. And I guess when I do get my very own Springwood billboards, by the way, if you're unaware, I've been working with asset editors, and I've been working with community guys, people, and we've all created some really great custom Springwood billboards, and they are so close to being in my hands that I just can't wait. So I'll be using quite a lot of them later on down the track, and probably next episode I'm going to be featuring those billboards a lot. I'll be using them quite a lot. What I've been doing on screen, and I've just been working on figuring out where all these roads are going to go. This suburb that I end up placing down, I don't go to heaps amounts of detail. I try to keep it pretty prop free because it's sort of suburb that's not going to receive huge amounts of attention in Springwood. It's pretty much just going to be like a, like a background suburb. There are a lot of background suburbs in this city because it is such a huge city. There's only so much I really want to focus on. They are like the real unique areas, whereas like the actual whole of a city, I don't want to like focus on individual suburbs. Despite that though, there are some suburbs that have heaps amounts of detail, and I do feature them quite a lot. Whereas these ones are kind of just a bit of a backdrop, and you'll see me get into that a little bit later on down the track. And also a little bit later on down the track, I'll be placing down the very first Springwood cemetery. I know that is crazy. We have been building this for over a year now, and I've just been avoiding cemeteries because I feel like they take up a lot of room and a lot of unnecessary room. And I guess in the whole scheme of scale with City Skylines, scale is a bit weird. It's a bit strange. And to get like a cemetery totally right, you got to go for like grand and massive. So I never really had the right spots to place it down. Until now, like I had this one area that I didn't really know what to do with. So that fits in pretty perfectly. And you see me place it down kind of shortly. Actually, not shortly. At the very end of the episode. And in the meantime, I'm working on this commercial district for Santa Clara. This is all within the same suburb, by the way. And I've pretty much been breaking down these episodes as I've been placing down sort of like similar themed areas. So this similar themed area is pretty much a commercial area that is kind of not on the nicer side of places. You know those commercial districts that you only really go if you need to buy like a washing machine or a new car, or you're buying groceries. These are not shops that have boutiques or coffee shops. Like these are just like big brand areas. And I get this feeling when I glance over Google Earth and look at the different shapes of suburbs and how how they expand. And some suburbs don't even have these areas, whereas I feel like Santa Clara, kind of going off the Santa Monica feel, it does have an area that is like this. So I wanted to incorporate this and looking at like city patterns and where these areas sort of kind of come up. And they're sort of on these main roads that are super busy, get a lot of people coming and going, and they also kind of service more than one suburb, if you know what I mean. So, this area of Santa Clara serves a lot of the other areas around this district. For instance, Palmdale, like residents of Palmdale will probably come all the way over here and, go to these bigger brands that are over on this side of the river. And that was kind of my thinking behind this area. And I don't really, I don't really finish this area totally, to be honest. I was really running out of time with this episode, and it's one of those episodes that actually take a really long time to build, but it doesn't feel like I really achieved that much. And I think it's because there was a lot of thinking behind what I had to do. I had a lot of planning to do for this, for the future builds of Santa Clara. So that takes up a lot of brain power. And the detail work on these areas are very minimal because, like I said before, they're not like the most important areas within Springwood. However, they do sort of serve the bigger picture of Springwood being like a big city, and the way that big cities operate and how they all, how suburbs sort of work together as well. So, putting in a lot of fast food joints around these areas, and, a lot of older style brick commercial areas that are not on the nicer side of places. They are just like these rundown shops that, laundromats and, tailored shops and, things like that you only ever go to if you really have to. It's not like let's go for a stroll around here and see what we'll buy. That was kind of my reasoning behind it. And also there's kind of a lot of hotels around this area. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because there's this big highway that pretty much this is pretty much like the first suburb you hit when you get into Springwood. So a lot of people are actually probably on, doing big commutes from, out of region, and Santa Clara being like the first suburb they hit. It's probably late at night, it's like 12 a.m. and they, hit Springwood and they just go, we need to find a place quick. So I'm putting down a lot of these rundown motels to act as those like stopping points for people. And I'm going to be doing a lot more of them, probably like around similar areas of Springwood. And, they're the sort of like city patterns that I really like. And I don't know why, but like they're the things that I notice the most when I go traveling myself, or even if I'm on Google Earth kind of exploring and checking out how cities sort of operate and how they expand and, work as they do. And I really love it. I love these areas. I think they're really fascinating, even though they're like totally not fascinating and totally boring. And I think I've already mentioned this before, but if you are like-minded and find the way that cities sort of operate and expand, please let me know. I like to know if I'm not alone. And because we are sticking with an 80s feel, I am trying to stick with 80s style buildings, and it's getting much easier as time goes by in the world of city skylines, because a lot of people are just sort of building outside of the box. They're really starting to expand on the types of buildings, asset creators I'm talking about. And so I'm getting like tons of 80s style buildings, which is so awesome. And I'm actually going back through Springwood and deleting and unsubscribing from a lot of buildings that I was subscribed to when I first started this series, because they're just not 80s buildings. And I don't know if you've been following this channel from the beginning, but I feel like we're sticking with the 80s style a lot more so than I have previously, which is very, very cool. So, have you noticed any Easter eggs yet? Have you been looking for them? This is very fun. I'm really excited to be doing this. And something I forgot to mention in the intro was, if you have an area, if you have like a riddle, or if you have a reference to, or an Easter egg, I should be saying. If you have an Easter egg that you want to put into Springwood, get in touch. You can get in touch with me on Twitter. You can tweet at me and let me know. Message me privately, or even on the Discord server. All these links are in the description below. Like I said before, we are kind of like a biggish community, which is very cool. I'm noticing the Discord server being more active every day, which is really fun. And a lot of people getting involved with ideas and kind of getting excited for each episode, which is sort of the idea and sort of the reason why we are doing an Easter egg hunt. Like I've said before, Easter eggs within this city is sort of the whole reason why I've decided to build such a big city like Springwood, and to make it so, I guess, unique. It's not just like a city, it's set in the 80s, it's kind of quirky, and it has a real sort of feel to it, and that was sort of the whole point from the get-go. And also, if you haven't actually ever watched my, the very first video that I ever released, I'm going to leave, no, I'm not going to leave, there's too many links in the description. You can go and search for it. It's the very first episode of, a very first video I ever released. And I only just rewatched it for the first time in a really long time just the other day, and realized how cool it is, and how like much that idea of Easter eggs and detail and getting the feel of a city down was pretty much like the idea from the get-go. And it's cool to know that it's still kind of going on, and it's cool that people are really into it as well. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. What I'm doing on the screen, and I've placed down that suburb that has no detail, and it is very, it's like generic. It's a very generic suburb. What I was going for it is, I'm trying to kind of go with like two different themes, I guess. Theme number one being like small cottages. This area sort of started off as like a small little community and a small surfing community, at least according to the wiki. And now that it's sort of becoming more of a popular place, the city's expanding, the houses are sort of becoming a lot more modern, a lot more upper class. So there's a real mix between small little houses, little cottages, and some bigger mansions that you probably find more in Evergreen. And I wanted to have that feel to it. It is still somewhat of a wealthy suburb, this area, and you know, up on the hillside you'd have some beautiful views and some, you know, great scenery and access to the beach. So it's actually like prime real estate. However, back in the 80s in Springwood, I mean, this area was kind of just up and coming, so that was sort of the feel to it. And definitely when we start getting closer to the ocean side of Santa Clara, we're going to be getting into the more seaside mansions and the bigger buildings and the more commercial, touristy side of things. Whereas these sort of neighborhoods that sprawl from that area are just total neighborhoods. So sorry if like the builds haven't been quite as interesting, but I'm trying to like include always some sort of interesting points, where it be a cemetery or be it's interesting interchange or the introduction of a Easter egg hunt, whatever it may be, because otherwise this is pretty much just a suburb build. And next episode, it's not going to be a suburb build, it's actually going to be more based around the touristy side of Santa Clara, which is, you know, very exciting to do. And right now I'm actually, like I said before, placing down my very first cemetery, and I'm gonna be honest, I got like a real spooky feel when I was like building this. It felt wrong. It felt wrong to be making a cemetery, you know? I don't know. It just did not sit right with me. Might just be a game, but like it just did not feel right. So I did build this. I don't know how many more cemeteries I want to build. It wasn't like the most thrilling or exciting of builds, to be honest, and I don't include too much of it in the cinematics. Sorry, in the build. Too much of the word build right now. But I am playing with like the road paths and, you know, also just like looking at a lot of images just to kind of get the idea of how they look and how they operate and how, you know, where people walk around and, you know, where the tombstones lie, and I don't know. It's all a bit gruesome. I was getting really bummed out when I was like building it. It felt really awkward. And also playing with like some different road, different pathways as well. And yeah, I'm always like really cautious about these custom pathways that people will upload, especially when it's like an asset creator that I've never really heard of before, because I'm kind of really cautious that if they were to just suddenly get rid of that asset from the workshop, my whole game would just totally die. If you're not aware of that, if you are like subscribed to a network, road network, for instance, as Parking Lots, and that person was to remove that asset from the workshop, your save would just not work anymore. And unless you have a locally saved version of that on your computer, you won't be able to get that save back. So it's really important to make regular backups. I do it monthly and just keep monthly updates of each of my series so that I, you know, always have a locally saved assets just in case, pretty much. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this episode, guys. I am so excited about this Easter egg hunt, whatever you guys end up naming it. Please let me know, because that name that I'm calling it sucks, and I would really love your creative minds to think about some great names to call this segment. And if you have any cool suggestions, please let me know in the comments. And I look forward to finding out who is the winner of today's Easter egg challenge. I wish everyone could be the winner and see this awesome video that I've made, but I really wanted this to be super special and to the incentive be very, very high. So definitely get involved if you want to see the video. There is no other way you will see it unless you win this challenge. Maybe I'll release it, I don't know, next year or in 6 months. Who knows? But anyway, let's not get into anything else because it's the end of the episode. Thanks guys for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. See you later.